And I believe we are live. We are live here in the spoiler room again. Welcome everyone. It's a new month, which means a new theme. And this month, the Wheel of Random chose last month. If you missed out, we picked Artificially Yours, in which we're talking about 4 films this month that involve people and synthetic love interests. So we definitely have an interesting variety. Hey, you never know what subgenre I'm going to pick on this show, baby. That's for sure. But you know what? I found 4 movies that involve this.
It's a pretty common theme, and
it is actually a fairly and becoming more common theme as the years go on and AI gets even more and more popular. But who is also popular is one of my crew members joining me tonight. We will have a couple more, possibly, hopefully, tuning in soon. But right now, we have back with us the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Joe Randazzo. Hello, Joe. How are you doing?
Hey, everyone.
So glad you could be here, and so glad everyone could venture down the stairs, pull up a chair, and grab your favorite drink as we talk movie spoilers. And yes, tonight we are talking about 1982's Blade Runner. Now we're going to talk about the final cut, which is very similar to the director's cut, but it is different than the theatrical cut, which is different than the work print. And then there's one other one, I think, in there, and the TV cut. So there's like 6 versions, I think I read.
6 versions, and 5 of them all available on the same Blu-ray set that is a few feet away. So
very nice.
So I was like, oh, wait, which one are we doing? Yeah, I don't want to end up watching the wrong cut.
No. Well, this one, I mean, and I've got the soundtrack in the back we got here on vinyl, which I don't even remember where I found that, but I got the Blade Runner soundtrack on vinyl. So happy I do.
I'm not shocked by that at all.
I know, right? Is that a surprise? And then I've got the ye old school DVD here with the flip one side standard, the other side is letterbox. And all you got a track listing there for people who pay attention to that, I guess,
or for people who haven't seen it and want the movie spoiled.
Yeah, right. Right, because this just like it's
That's one thing about those chapters is the death of so and so. Shit.
Well, it's like the special I tell people when I do the disc reviews, I go, watch the movie before you watch the supplemental material, because a lot of times it'll get spoiled. And like the worst one was Companion, really great movie, probably one of my favorite horror movies of the year. The 4K release, if you watch the little bit of supplemental material they gave, it gives away the entire movie.
If you watch the trailer, it gives away the entire movie.
That's true.
But who would watch the supplemental material before watching the movie?
I don't know. There's some people out there, but I can tell you what doesn't give away the movie is the trailer for Blade Runner. And I have the synopsis right here because Mr. Randazzo, I would pick you, but as you said,
I can't find one on any of these versions. I can read it off a Letterboxd.
So there's only one sentence on the letter off of IMDb, but I do have a synopsis here for it on there's a huge it's like the entire movie on IMDb. When you read the storyline, it's like the entire thing. But I'll read
when you go to Wikipedia and you click plots, sometimes it'll just give you like a paragraph. Sometimes it'll like give you like, oh, dude, this is the whole movie.
So I don't want to give that because we're going to go into all of that. That's basically this entire synopsis of this film, but we'll give it here. Rick Deckard, Harrison Ford, prowls the steel and microchip jungle of the 21st century Los Angeles. He's a Blade Runner, stalking genetically made criminal replicants. His assignment, kill them. Their crime, wanting to be human. I like that synopsis.
That is actually kind of nice. It gives it a little more depth than you would think a movie like this would have until you actually watch it. Because I'm sure there were a lot of people that went to the theaters in 1982 expecting this to be just a big dumb action sci-fi movie, and were surprised to find it actually has a lot of legs.
And it would be great if it stopped there, but then the next paragraph just blows the whole movie away. But this came out like 17 years after the movie, so I guess they figure, fuck you, because it basically dives right into
It's
it.
like the Thunderbolts trailer. If you didn't see it the first weekend, fuck off. Who cares? We're going to spoil the
Yeah,
whole goddamn thing.
right. Right. Hey, by the way, you know that little thing at the end of Thunderbolts movie that we made an epic thing? We played the epic music. We did even its own little comical, like, animation at the very end. Yeah, we're just going to put that in all the promo materials now. Fuck you.
We got to get people in the theater somehow. And how do you get people in the theater? Tell them what's going to happen in the movie.
Right.
Tell them everything.
So yes, this is one known for not only its cuts, but known as one of the early Harrison Ford roles that didn't involve Star Wars. It's a film that's been discussed many times, and we're covering it tonight because, I wanted to talk about it. And it just so happened, because it was the Wheel of Random, folks, last month, when we spun the Wheel of Random, it was before trivia, and we happened to land on Artificially Yours, which included this film that I picked at the beginning of the year. This happened to be the trivia movie, too. So,
Nice.
Yeah, I got to see it on the big screen for trivia, which was a lot of fun. And it should be seen on the big screen because we've got you've got Ridley Scott in here, and Harrison Ford. You've got so many names in this: Rutger Hauer, Sean Young, Edward James Olmos.
That's one thing that stuck out to me last night watching the opening credits, and I was like, every single one of those people is a star on some level, and that's rare. That's really, really rare that every one of those people is known, at least among hardcore film fans. Because you ask the guy walking down the street who Brian James is, they might not know, but the rest of us.
You just look at besides those that I mentioned, you also have, like you said, Byron James, Joanna Cassidy, James Hong is in here, Emmett Walsh is in here. I mean, it's like
James Hong, who recently, like in the last couple of years, surpassed John Carradine as the
most films.
Yeah, the most films ever made.
Which is just fine, because James Hong is one of those guys to where even if the film is sucking, the minute he shows up, I'm like, okay, this just got infinitely better, because I love James Hong, and we'll talk about him a bit. But so Blade Runner, I mean, I was born. I remember my dad took me to see this in the theater, so I did get to see it when I was a kid, but I was 7. Okay, so, but it's the 80s. They took me to see Conan as well. So, same year. Yeah, but
RoboCop had a cartoon series for us, So,
RoboCop, Toxic Avenger. I mean, there was like half a dozen R-rated properties that got kids shows with it. So
yeah, why not take your kid to see Blade Runner?
Why not? But so Blade Runner for you, you remember when you first saw it?
It was definitely on TV, again with my dad, because this is one of those movies that was a staple of New York television. It would, for whatever reason, it would always air on like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. And my dad was home and I was home and Blade Runner was on, and it was that and like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and like the Leone Westerns, because he used to watch those every time they aired. It didn't matter. If it was on every Saturday on TBS, we were watching it every Saturday on TBS. That's what he wanted.
Yeah, it was definitely cable fodder for a long time.
Well, this was network TV fodder.
And that was network TV, but I mean network TV and cable fodder. It was out. It would be hard pressed, especially on a late night when they were looking for programming. It's like, what do we got? Let's throw Blade Runner on.
I mean, why not? It's a crowd pleaser too. The only thing that now I do kind of want to revisit that TV cut, because they would have to get it down to 2 hours, including commercials. And this movie is 117 minutes long.
Right.
So I'm kind of wondering, I kind of want to go back and look and be like, what was the version that I saw as a kid?
Well, the one that you saw as a kid was probably closer to the theatrical cut, because I think the theatrical cut weighed in at 90 some. I apologize. I usually have that up, but there's so many cuts of this that I think the theatrical cut was a lot shorter.
I thought the theatrical cut was actually longer. See, I get confused with these too because this has more cuts than a Jess Franco movie.
This isn't like, Metropolis or something where they keep finding more footage. No, this just keeps getting cut down further.
We'll talk about that in a couple weeks too.
Yeah, we'll mention that because I got a few changes, folks, if you listened last week to what I mentioned last week. But yeah, you've got versions of Blade Runner. So I've got that up here. So there's the work print. And then there's the San Diego sneak peek version that they showed. Then the US theatrical version with the happy ending. And then, the international theatrical release, which was the 117-minute one. The director's cut, which says was 116 minutes. And then the final cut, which was back to 117 minutes. Yeah, I mean, this has been through so many different cuts and versions, but I remember the theatrical cut, and if you watch the theatrical cut, that makes the least amount of sense, I think, out of for most of the character stuff. You really lose a lot of character stuff because I believe they cut it down for more of the, to the action, I think. With that, but I remember watching this, and as 7 years old, I was like, okay, just get me to the action parts because this is based off of Philip K. Dick's. I think it's a short story. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and so it is adapted from that. And this is heady sci-fi of sorts. I mean, you get into a lot of exposition in this, a lot of dialogue, and an interesting ending to your bad guy and that. But
yeah, and this almost feels like we should have covered it 2 weeks ago during Easter with that with that Rutger Hauer exit.
With the Rutger Hauer exit, yeah, absolutely, yeah, because
very Jesus imagery.
Oh yeah, no, there's
the hole in the hand.
There's some god complexing going on too with our guy Batty, whose real name I actually have that up here. His character name is actually Roy. He's Roy Batty, but everybody calls him Batty. And I've got the reason I know that I've got my trivia notes here because for trivia, the world's largest trivia contest, which happens in April, when they pick the trivia movie, they are going to ask a lot of questions on it. So you have to take extensive notes. And even with the extensive notes, you miss stuff. Oh, but yeah. You write down everything you possibly can. Well, like you do notes for your one of your jobs, one of your many jobs. And every little sign in the background you've got to take note of and such. But so yeah, it's Roy Batty. He is the leader, I guess, of the you could say the leader of these replicants. Whether series Nexus 6, which are the ones that are closest to humans, and go figure, they're the most violent. We're not saying anything. They're not saying anything, right, Joe?
What did Ridley Scott getting at? Between this and Alien, where everybody who doesn't listen to the woman gets killed. Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott, yeah. But yeah, so you've got it played beautifully by Rutger Hauer. Rutger Hauer, I think Rutger is an underappreciated actor in many respects because he always brings something interesting to his characters, whether he's the hero or the villain. Usually the villain. He's like that guy that, he and Christopher Lambert are in the same category to where there's a fine line between the hero and villain roles they play, and not, if at all, because they just come off as you look at him and go, yeah, he's a villain. But I like Roy Batty in here. This is a character that's more than just Down with the Humans.
And it's because it's Rutger Hauer, who, I agree. Even before last year, I agreed that he was an underappreciated actor. But last year on Literary License, we started covering all of Paul Verhoeven's movies.
Oh, okay, sure.
So I got to see him at the very beginning of his rise. Was this his first American movie, I think, or was there anything? I can't think of anything before this.
I think this was his first
major American movie.
His first major one.
Yeah, because I realized with Soldier of Orange and a couple of those other movies, he was already an international star, but he brings so much to this villain. And yeah, you're right. It elevates him above just being your standard, sci-fi Terminator type who's, just like you said, down with humans. He's a completely he gives it a third dimension. But also that's in the writing. He is Rutger, I'm going to end up just going off on tangents about how much I love his work now, because I realized in the last year how much I had underappreciated him. And it's probably because a lot of the times when I was growing up, he was in those direct-to-video action movies that three of us rented.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Hey, I rented and we owned on beta, and then I think I got a copy now on VHS somewhere or whatnot. Wanted Dead or Alive, the one where he plays the bounty hunter opposite Gene Simmons of Kiss fame.
The one where he plays the bounty hunter?
Yeah, that one that he plays the bounty hunter. I also remember seeing him in Hitcher.
Yes, Hitcher's great.
He's freaking scary in Hitcher. And he's scary in this because, he can really play that, I guess you could say, bubbling crazy. Like, he's calm, yet underneath, there's all kinds of shit going on underneath. And you could tell at any moment he could just go off. And that's the way he plays Roy Batty here in this film.
And when he finally does go off towards the end, grabbing Decker's hand through the wall, and this one's for what was Daryl Hannah's character's name again?
I've got that up. I've got that up here.
But yeah, breaking his fingers, one for each of the
Pris. That one's for Pris.
That one's that was the second one. This one's for Pris.
And then Leon was the other one that he wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the stripper. He broke one for the stripper.
Zora. Yeah, Zora. Yeah. Yeah, because these Nexus 6 escape, and I love how they write this. You could tell they had a limited budget. 6 of them escaped off of off-planet mining colony because replicants, synthetic humans, have been created. They're used as slave labor. Nexus 6 ones are advanced military weapons that they used for war, and they got tired of being, pawns in the big cog and ran away, killing people and such along the way because they don't have a problem. But I love how they report it, and it's like, 6 of them got away, 2 of them died on impact when their ship crashed on Earth. I'm like, oh, okay. So
we don't have the money to show you that, though.
We don't have the money to show you that. We couldn't afford 2 more people. So
but that being said, it still works. Because just the way just the way that Ridley Scott is able to get so much out of a low budget. You see it with Alien too.
Oh yeah. Well, and then you get into the remastered, because the remastered version that's online on Amazon that I watched, fuck, it looks gorgeous and it looks clear. And you look at the details of the models they put in for these big, huge buildings that are for the corporation that creates the synthetic people.
That was one thing that immediately last night struck me. It was how beautiful this whole thing looked, and there, does some of it look fake? Yes, but it's beautiful because you could see people worked hard on it. Great H.R. Geiger inspired set pieces all over the place.
Well, you get all these other references too. I mean, if you look at this, he even makes the chaos and the crowdedness of the city streets, from the overpopulation, look, it's shot beautifully, for lack of a better. It fills the screen. There's something going on everywhere, and it feels like a world. The way he's able to build the world of Blade Runner so quickly is very impressive. It just pulls you in. You're like, okay, you've got a mixture of cultures. The streets are crowded, and watching it again now, you see how many sci-fi films and such later on from this movie got influenced by it. Namely Firefly. I have no problems with. I love Firefly. I love my Firefly to death. But one of the common things they share is how the Asian culture kind of worked its way into Main Street to where it's everywhere. You get that in Firefly, and you get that here in Blade Runner.
Yeah, and actually visually, as I just saw this movie for the first time recently, visually, some of the scenes reminded me of Chungking Express.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the scenes where the police officers walking up to the stand.
Right. So
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so besides Batty, you've got, Daryl Hannah playing Pris, which, again, this was a role that people aren't used to seeing Daryl Hannah in, because, she's usually arm candy or the love interest or the cute girl, and here she is Roy Batty's girl, but
she still plays up the arm candy and the beautiful, the beautiful thing. Yeah. She's got to seduce. What the fuck's his name? Man, how am I blanking on everybody's names tonight? I think it's just being tired.
Oh, you're talking about Sebastian.
Sebastian. She's got to seduce Sebastian, so she still plays it up. As far, her being a badass. I don't know if she did anything before this where she kind of played this kind of part, but
but she's in makeup, and that she's not her. What the big shocker is for some people, at least for me, when I noticed a little bit older, because when I was younger I didn't really pay attention to too many, but is that this is Daryl Hannah, but she's not in her blonde hair normal image. She's not at any point, no. She's looking like early Harley Quinn. I got Harley Quinn vibes from her.
I wonder if that's if part of that is inspired by Blade Runner. Part of the Harley Quinn thing is.
I wouldn't doubt it, because here she is. This was probably her biggest film, because she was only in 3 films before this. She was in The Fury, so but this was like her 4th film only. But it's definitely a different look for her, and I like it.
So this is before Splash?
Yeah, this was just before Splash. This was 2 years before Splash. She's playing this type of character, which is funny, because you know what? I bet you after Splash, she probably wouldn't have been able to play this character.
No, probably not. Because, at that point, she's, the sex goddess that everybody was obsessed with for a while.
Right, because in this one, she's very goth girl in this.
Yeah, very early goth. Yeah,
very early goth. Very interesting character. Because each one of the Nexus 6 models were designed for different things. Roy Batty was a leader. He's special ops. He's the smartest one, quote unquote, smartest one. Whereas, her Pris was, as they call, a basic pleasure model, though she does like to kill people.
That is exactly how they worded it too. The basic pleasure model.
Their words, not mine. Okay, their words. And then you had Zora, who was the one who She was working basically a burlesque show with a snake, and then you had Leon, who was the muscle. And he's the first replicant we meet is Leon. which I think was interesting too, because we don't really meet our main characters right away in this film. I mean, we spend a little chunk of time with Leon first.
And that first scene, I don't know if it's just because the final cut, the scene where he actually shoots the interrogator.
Yeah.
There is like a weird jump in this cut, and I hadn't seen this is the first time I was watching this version of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have to go back at some point and look and be like, it feels like there was something that got cut out that maybe I'd forgotten about, because
or cut in incorrect. They were trying to restore something in, because with the director's cut and finals cut, especially, they took the extra violent footage from the European cut and worked it back into the American cut, because they cut some of the violence down. And we were joined by Mike Crawley.
Hello,
Mike.
Hey, Mike.
How's it going?
So glad you could join us, Joe. Mike, Joe.
We've been on together before.
I have you. Okay. I wasn't quite sure. I've been doing so many of these, but we're right now talking about our Nexus 6 models, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference in personalities in them too, like how they're each, they're unique one. Pris has her own look, Batty, Zora, and even Leon. I mean, they at least gave them some separation. They're not all the same replicants, right?
Yeah, and the funniest thing is, like, when you look at Batty, I guess that's Rucker Hauer's replicant.
Yeah, Roy. Yeah.
He's kind of like the leader of the group. And the thing is, like, the movie makes you feel sorry for the robots because they have a shortened lifespan. But at the same time, like, Rucker Hauer, Batty, he's just going around murdering people so he can get, like, an answer as to how he can extend his life or whatever. So in the movie, it was a little hard for me to feel bad for them because they were, like, so psychotic. They killed they killed the guy who makes the machines. I can't remember his name, whatever. And
Tyrell.
I'm sorry?
I think it was Tyrell.
Yeah, Tyrell Corporation, yeah. And then they go after JF Sebastian, after they eye gouged Tyrell out.
Oh no, they eye gouged James Hong's character, because they go to the eye guy first. Yeah. And then they go Sebastian, and then they get to Tyrell.
Yeah.
And But yeah.
And it's just like a trail of violence that they leave behind, which makes sense why Deckard is supposed to retire them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the movie was like, what year to come out? Because it was like way ahead of its time. 82, yeah. Because those visual effects still look great when you watch the movie. They haven't aged much. It looks better than most of the CGI stuff we get these days. But it's definitely like a slow moving picture, and I think that's something that a lot of audiences complained about with the sequel, where it's like, oh, it's just slow shots of Ryan Gosling walking around. But like the whole slow pace of the movie is intentional, because you're supposed to sort of figure out where these replicants are going, why Deckard's killing them, and what's going on with Deckard. Because Deckard in this film, although Ridley Scott adamantly said that he's not an android, I'd say, like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But then again, if he's not an android, how did he live so many years, and be alive for the sequel? And
did he say that even for the sequel? Because I thought that was confirmed then that Deckard was, because that was like the biggest debate when this film came out at the end. The biggest buzz for this film for ages, till Blade Runner, was it 2050 came out, was, is Deckard a replicant?
Yeah. And they don't answer it in the sequel either. They like to keep it sort of ambiguous, which I think works. I mean, I personally don't think he's a replicant, because every time he fights them, like, they just kick his ass. And then, he, again, with the sequel, he's aging, he's changing. And I don't see replicants living on like 30 plus years after their like expiration date.
Well, they were only supposed to live 4 years, so that was part of Roy's motivation. Which, I like that though. I like our villains in here, because even though they're psychotic, they feel like they've got a little more personality above that for
Yeah.
each one of them, which is nice for, you know, your villains, especially your synthetic villains. They're not like Terminators. They're not like
Yeah.
this one drive or whatever. These, they feel a bit like people, a little psychotic, but a little sympathetic too.
Yeah.
You know, they're most of them. And in fact, it was Roy who really was out trying to find a way to extend the life for his compatriots, you know, for the other four. The other a couple of them, you feel like they just wanted to blend in. At least Zora and Leon just kind of wanted to live. They're like, yeah, pay no attention to us. You know, and it so during this, there's a way to tell for replicants, because yes, replicants went a little crazy and started killing humans, which is why they came up with the Blade Runners, so that they could take out replicants. But it's hard to tell just on the surface who is who. So they do this odd test.
Yeah.
And the one thing I think that's never really solidly established in this film is how that test actually detects replicants. I mean, they try to explain it, but I'm like, I have a feeling that's something that's lost in translation from book to screen.
Yeah, and because they don't really establish, like, because they ask him all these hypothetical questions, like there's a turtle and it's on its back. Do you roll it over or do you not, and stuff like that. Like, it's trying to test their empathy, and in a way, I think by testing that, they're able to see if it's replicants or not.
Right.
But as you said, it's not very clear how that works exactly. Like, do they answer the questions wrong, and if they answer it wrong, you can tell that they're a replicant, or is there a right answer to the question? Because they're all hypothetical questions that they give them.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, they kind, like I said, they kind of explain it as, you know, looking for reaction to extreme situations, but I never got anything, especially in that opening interrogation with Leon. I'm like, he's asking the shit I would ask. Well, why wouldn't I flip the turtle over? Well, you just won't. Well, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I turn to flip?
Yeah, they keep messing with them.
Yeah. Joe, well, what about you? Do you think they kind of are vague with this test?
Even with the Sean Young test, it's still all we know is I had to ask her 100 questions where normally you could figure it out in 30.
Yeah.
It still didn't really answer. I mean, how do you know it's not just a human with no empathy? You know?
Right.
Yeah, that's a Republican.
Yeah, I that's one thing that even watching this again recently, because it was, you know, for trivia and all that, I was like, that's the one thing. And I granted, now that's not the main thing. I mean, especially with the final cut, this is especially with the director's cut and finals cut, it's more about trying to establish that relationship more with the Rachel, the Sean Young character, and our guy Deckard, and their love that grows for each other fairly quickly, and that is evident in the new cut. So I guess explaining the test isn't a whole thing, but me as a sci-fi geek, I'm like, how does that work?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the way Deckard and Sean Young's replicant, like Rachel, ends up getting together is really outdated and weird, because like he slams her against the wall and like demands her to kiss him. He gets like really rapey with her.
Dude, rewatching it, because it had been years since I watched this, and so when I was sitting in the theater, that was the one thing that got a reaction out of the entire crowd when we watched it in a packed theater with today's sensibilities. Watching that love scene in quotes, I'm like, I don't remember this. Whoa.
Yeah. Which cut did they show in the theater?
This cut.
The final cut?
Yeah.
I was thinking, I remember the theatrical cut where Harrison Ford had to like narrate what was going on to explain to the audience, and he intentionally did it bad, thinking the studio wouldn't put it in the film, but then they put it in the film anyways.
That explains a lot.
Yeah,
I hate that stuff, man. I hate when studios do that, and now apparently Netflix is bringing back something similar. It's like, hey, have the characters announce what they're doing so people who aren't fully paying attention will know what's going on. Well, maybe don't watch a fucking movie then.
Yeah, it's.
Oh wow, we lost our host.
Oh God, he's been retired.
No, I've been retired.
Are we still on if he's gone? He's back. Okay.
You can still be on. No, I accidentally clicked the wrong
I was
thing.
like, wait, did the YouTube then cut off, or are we still live?
No, we're still live. But yeah, the love interest, Rachel, played by Sean Young, who, yeah, a lot of names in this film that were earlier in their career. Well, Sean Young was established, I think, up at this point as kind of the because she was the it actress for a while in the 80s. I'm not sure what she had before this, but I think she had been in quite a few films. I don't remember offhand. Let me check it up quick. I might be wrong. No, she's similar. That's why the only other film that she had been in before Blade Runner, she was in a Jane Austen in Manhattan, which I guess is a sequel to Hercules in Manhattan. No, and Stripes. So she was in Stripes.
Yeah, that was before that.
So she was just starting out as well, and this is 2 years before Dune. So you've got a lot of young, familiar faces in this film. But Sean Young, she's playing a replicant, and the minute you meet her, I'm sorry, but I'm like, yeah, replicant.
Yeah, just the way she like walks towards Deckard and sort of like her tone of voice. It sounds a little robotic, and you can kind of get the idea that she's a replicant from there. Plus, they're in Tyrell's corporation. She's like the assistant to Tyrell, I guess, and you can clearly tell just by looking into her eyes and like the first time you see her that she's not human. I think they kind of intentionally.
And yet, it takes Deckard longer than it's ever taken him with anyone else to figure it out.
He does that questionnaire for like a solid hour. I'm gonna guess.
Yeah, 100 questions.
It was 100 questions that he had to ask her. So it's got to be well over an hour at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what kind of got me too. I'm not sure with the direction of what she was given for how to play Rachel, but there's really, it's like the minute she walks in the room and whatnot, I'm like, yeah, replicant. I mean, it's just how can you not notice that, and it's no fault on her. I think Sean Young does well in here, but yeah, they build this love interest. Now, again, Harrison Ford didn't have a huge amount of acting before Star Wars, okay? Mm-hmm. And so he's still a bit green here as well, and you could tell because when it comes to romantic screen chemistry,
that kiss is awkward. That kiss is very awkward looking.
Well, not only the kiss, but then, yeah, like I said, we get the actual scene where they finally basically hook up. But how it starts, the foreplay, quote unquote, that you want to say, is the most awkward to watch ever because he is rather forceful with her. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, this is awkward in an audience full of 180 people. And you could feel the entire audience going, that's Han Solo. And he's basically, and not only that, but it's the dialogue too. He tells her, tell me you want me to kiss you.
Yeah.
Like, holy kiss
me. Do it.
Oh God, a couple years ago, Cinepocalypse showed Tammy and the T-Rex. And I think that was my first experience watching an older movie with like a much younger crowd because they were like so shocked by everything in it. I'm like, this movie isn't even like that, like extreme. It's just cheesy.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh my God, they are, there was the F slur and there were people like openly gasping. And I'm like, oh dude, any movie from the 90s, you're going to hear that word like 30 times, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it is weird watching these older movies with a younger crowd who, everything is so sanitized now in the movies they watch. Like I didn't see it, but I heard Miller's Girl, the erotic thriller with Jenna Ortega, I heard was very tame. And I'm like, oh well, I guess that makes sense that even our erotic thrillers are tame now.
Yeah, but yeah, in this one, it's like But even before that, I never felt like any real chemistry or connection between our two characters. And I know they're robot. One's a robot, at
Well,
least.
and that's kind. I think that might be kind of leaning towards the idea of Deckard being a replicant because you watch, especially that first kiss. I look at it, I'm like, have you two done this before?
Yeah, and they also kind of hint that he's a replicant when he's like dreaming of a unicorn or something like that.
The extended cut, the director's
Yeah.
or final cut. There it is. The unicorn scene is much longer. In fact, it was cut out, I think, of the American version, the theatrical US version, and it was put back in, which it does come around and make a bit of significance later on and poses even more questions, which this film's very good at laying out a bunch of questions. But yeah, it's supposed to be a love story. You've got this subplot love story with Deckard and Rachel, and I just never feel it. I'm like, ever. And yeah, that could be them leaning towards why people thought Deckard was a replicant. Another reason why I thought maybe Deckard, it was, for the longest time, that he was a replicant of some sort or advanced one is even the scene with Tyrell, who seems overly fascinated with Deckard when he shows up, like extra, or later on or earlier when we first get to meet Deckard and he gets picked up by Gaff, Edward James Olmos character. Yes, he's in this too. And they meet, Bryant, his captain. The way his captain acts towards him, he's like, "So you're gonna want to bring them in?" he almost like he's looking at how he's reacting to this, and I'm just like, maybe there is a little something you could see of them thinking he was a replicant.
Yeah. I mean, and especially it goes back to the unicorn scene at the end when he like steps on the little origami of a
right.
Yeah, of a thing. So that's sort of supposed to hint that Deckard's replicant, but I don't know. Is the story more interesting if he is or isn't a replicant, especially when they carry it on to the sequel? Because despite that weird romance, they ended up producing a baby. Spoiler in the second film, but then she doesn't live very long, anyways. They have like a short romance because I think her lifespan ran out, and also there are other Blade Runners hunting her down. And the movie ends with Harrison Ford going in the elevator with her, kind of being like her protector. And in a way, it's like probably the first replicant he's ever tried to save instead of kill. And I think it probably changes his outlook on most of them. But they have the theatrical version where he explains all that, where he sounds like he's being narrated while being held at gunpoint.
Well, and then they fly out. Yeah. That's one thing. Joe, you mentioned about the abrupt cuts. There's a number of them in here, and I think it's them trying to insert the footage back into what they had. But one of the main abrupt things, the most abrupt thing, which it's the ending that a lot of people think is more fitting to the film, is in this version that I have here on the DVDs and that's on Amazon, the final cut is there is no voiceover. Deckard leaves the apartment. He happens to find an origami unicorn. Now, one of the things that Gaff has been doing is doing origami, and he does things like little art things, like either stick figure or he does origami. And so the origami unicorn at the end shows that, yeah, Gaff knows that Deckard's going to leave with Rachel, and he knows about Deckard's dream with the unicorn, which again implies, okay, does that mean he knows Deckard's programming?
Yeah, it felt like he was leaving clues behind, like, oh, we know you're actually, or I know you're actually a replicant, and it's too bad that she won't live. But then again, who does? That also goes towards Deckard,
right?
It's like, you're gonna die too, but I guess they never really followed through with that, with trying to kill Deckard. It's just kind of leaving hints to kind of screw with his mind.
Yeah, it could be that. It's like, I'm not sure which would make it more interesting. Joe, what would you say? Which would make more interesting? That Deckard actually is a replicant, like a most advanced replicant, or is he, or him being human and falling for the thing that he's supposed to hunt and kill, which is what I think they're trying to go for in this. But there's a lot of.
I do think him being a replicant and would be more interesting, but like Mike said, he wouldn't exist in the sequel then. So,
right.
Man, I don't know. I mean, I don't like to second guess 40-year-old movies because, like, especially a master like Ridley Scott, I don't want to second guess him and be like, oh, I think this would have been more interesting. But I think that would have been that probably would have been the way I would have gone with it. But I'm also not Ridley Scott, so
right. Well, I mean, and then the other angle, though, you look at the narrative would be the more common narrative of the guy who's sent to kill something falls in love with it instead, which is a more common sci-fi theme or just theme in general.
Even noir, even
noir. Yeah. You're supposed to kill the femme fatale, and oops, I didn't. Well, now my boss is after me, and that's basically what you have here because this is a neo noir thing.
It definitely is.
This is full on noir, sci-fi noir, which is one of the things why I love it, because I love noir in general. And so, I just enjoy the look and the question of him being a replicant. I like the idea more that he's not a replicant. What's funny is we have a sequel out now that tries to answer some of the questions we have. You didn't have that sequel for 40 some years. So, it's like almost the sequel almost ruins some things because it's like, I don't want these questions necessarily answered because they make for fun discussions.
Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes the best thing is not knowing because we could have this kind of discussion about it.
Yeah, the ambiguity of the film is really what makes it work. And I think the sequel, although I actually like it better than the original, but I can get into that later. The sequel like spells more things out for the audience. Like Denis Villeneuve, he doesn't choose the best scripts in the world, but he's an incredible visual storyteller.
Yeah.
And that showed in 2049. And of course that transitioned into Dune and stuff like that. Like Denis Villeneuve knows how to capture a certain mood in the film just through his mise en scène. Where Ridley Scott, he kind of did the same thing. He was a very visual guy, but he's a little more up and down, like with the movies that he's made throughout his career. I mean, and of course he's sequelizing everything. He sequelized Alien. He sequelized
Gladiator.
And then what's the third one he sequelized?
Wasn't he Gladiator?
Gladiator 2, yeah.
Yeah, Gladiator
that
2.
Piece of shit movie.
Man, I still need to see that because I only get it's great or it's the fucking worst thing ever. So I need to see it.
There's no reason. Even like the opening credits make it, they're like showing like animated versions of like what happened in the first film because like the movie itself knows that they can't really live up to that. So all they do is just add more shit to it. Like when they have like the boats, like when they flood the arena and they have like boats there. I'm like, what the hell is this? When I'm watching it.
Denzel Washington's the only real reason to watch Gladiator 2.
Which is another thing I've heard.
He's in a different film. Whereas, at least I don't. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed the Blade Runner sequel. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it. It was a sequel that wasn't necessarily needed, though. And part of the reason why I think this film has lasted as long as it has been the gray areas of way he directs things. He doesn't hold your hand in Blade Runner in the original one. You're given this world, you're given this story, you're given these characters and situations, which are a pretty straightforward noir story. But then there's all these little bits and pieces and hints, like the unicorn dream and how she plays music that she's instantly able to read the music because she's a replicant. She could read it, and it was like just like his mom. He says could play it. Which is memory, which is one of the things they play at is Rachel's the advanced version. And even the Nexus 6 folks are more advanced humans because they found to give them memories, to give them a personality. So they give them memories, and Rachel has memories. And when Deckard mentions memories, the way Scott directs this, he does this shit on purpose. She reacts to it almost like, oh, you have that memory too? Or, oh, I know of that memory. So it's like they really play around with trying to paint possibly Decker as being like even the next level replicant. But having that enigma in there for so long, I think, is what helped keep this film in the zeitgeist in discussions. I mean, this film has been dissected quite a bit.
Yeah, it really has been. I think the beauty and the aging of the film is not just the visuals, but it's kind of a question about our own existence.
Mhm.
Why are we here? What is our purpose? Who is our maker? And what happens when we realize there's not much time left in our lives, but we want to keep it going?
Mhm.
Do we go to the extremes that Rutger Hauer's little posse of replicants go, or do you live a peaceful life and just peacefully let yourself die? So, it's really a movie about mortality and, the meaning of why are we here? And of course, Deckard, like, I kind of wish they gave us a little more information as to his character. Like, why is he an alcoholic? And
well, because it's noir. That's why. No,
yeah, exactly. Because like
He's a
every time we see
detective.
Deckard in his apartment, he's just getting drunk, and then he's like passing out on the couch, or he's looking at that photo in the one scene and he's enhancing it and all that. But yeah, it's a movie about kind of like this lost guy who's fighting all these other lost replicants.
Mhm.
And whether he's a replicant or not, that's up to the audience. I know Ridley Scott basically said, no, he's a replicant, shut up. That's what it is. But as an audience member, it's much more fun to kind of fill in the gaps ourselves. And this is kind of what makes the movie so special is it doesn't give you all the answers. It gives you more questions. And with more questions, it makes the narrative stand out much stronger rather than just kind of sliding over a piece of paper that says, okay, here's all the answers. It's a movie that really leaves us with an enigma. And I think that sort of curiosity has given way towards years and years and years of people writing their own pieces about it and what they think about the film. And I think that's why it remains so strong. I mean, thank God that Ridley Scott was able to go in there and get rid of all that shit from the theatrical cut. They don't have that stupid ending where they use leftover footage from The Shining of the hill, so they're driving around, and then he and Rachel live happily ever after. It's none of that crap. It's a movie that makes you question what's going to happen to these guys and why they even exist.
Yeah, and I know he's gone on record saying yes, he's a replicant. Then there's been discussions about Gaff, because you have Gaff in here who, I almost brought this up to my son because I took my son to the trivia movie to watch it. He'd never seen Blade Runner and he thought it was interesting. He said it'd be a ridiculous theory, but I'm like, if I remember the way it was almost cut in the theatrical version, it was almost it was like questioned, is Gaff real? Edward James Olmos's character, is he real, or is he a figment of Deckard's replicant brain? Except the captain acknowledges him. But if it wasn't for the captain acknowledging him, if you look at the way it's directed, Gaff, you cut out a couple scenes, Gaff could be an alternate version. I've seen it discussed too, where they say that Deckard has Gaff's memories. That's how he knows the unicorn at the end.
Yeah. I mean, it's ironic because he was talking to Tyrell saying, oh, you created memories for them. But then it's like Deckard, all the photos on his piano, that it's weird. This movie's supposed to take place in the future, but they have like these black and white faded photos. And it's just like, who did he know who was alive from 1950 till God only knows what year it was in Blade Runner that's still alive?
2019.
Yeah,
2019. Yeah,
that's right. It took place 2019. So
the future.
The future.
Like that Conan O'Brien segment in the year 2000. If anybody ever remembers that's an oldie.
It does take place in 2019, and you got the flying cars and overpopulation and all these other wonderful things that didn't happen.
That works so well visually because everyone in the streets are like cramped, and I just remember the sidewalk sign going where it's saying something, and then it's like walk, walk. It's like it's kind of like emblematic of how Deckard probably feels trapped in life. He has this little apartment. People are going like squeezing together literally just to get through the street, and Deckard pretty much like he does his job well, but he's miserable, because all he does is kill people or replicants all the time. And maybe towards the end he's realizing he's killing himself a little bit doing that, but we'll see. I mean,
let's not forget he was supposed to be retired.
Yeah,
so to speak.
Yeah, and then the fat police chief is like, I need the Blade Runner back.
I need the Blade Runner back.
Yeah.
And all Deckard wants to do is retire.
Yeah. Have you ever read the book?
No, I have not.
The book is so much different. Like Deckard's actually married to someone in the book, and like the one thing the wife wants real bad is like droid version of a sheep, because like all these animals, which they do address in the film, it's like if you have like an artificial animal like the snake or the owl, like those are actually worth a lot of money, but why that's worth a lot of money I never got. But yeah, there's other stuff in the book too where it would have been interesting if they gave Deckard more of a backstory, because he's just kind of like this bland character who drinks all the time and kills replicants, and that's about it.
Well, I think though in noir style, at least for this one, the story is trying to. While you do have the love story between Deckard and Rachel, it almost feels, if you watch how much screen time our Nexus guys get, it's almost their story.
Yeah.
More so than
the story.
Yeah, more so than Deckard. It's more exploring them and trying to extend their humanity and what they go through. And this is one of those where, yes, it was made in 82. It had a big budget, but at the same time, if you look at this is still handled like an indie film in many ways, because your cast, while you do have a number of like extras and everything, as far as your main cast goes, they keep it fairly tight.
Yeah.
As far as who you get, we get Sebastian, and it turns out Sebastian is a side character, but he's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like they even give this guy sub character.
He's like this lonely guy who's surrounded by all these toys that he's made. But, like
these toys that are like
little
people stuff.
Especially when Pris is like disguising herself as part of the toys. It feels like it's all part of like these toys are like probably the only thing that keeps him company, because he lives in this very lonely, like run down apartment building, which I would think that Tyrell would pay him more considering how much work he's putting into these androids. But that's a different story.
But is it so much that the apartment is small, or is it just cramped because he's built all these toys and it looks cramped, but at the same time it does look like it's a decent sized place.
Yeah,
he's a hoarder.
He's a hoarder. Well, and you get a better picture later on because the showdown is at Sebastian's hotel, because he actually lives in this abandoned hotel called the Bradbury, which I noticed because I had to take notes on it. It's called the Bradbury. And he talks about how they've actually got a lot of space, but he's got a lot of shit in his apartment. But that's basically the place where we have the final showdown between Deckard and the two replicants left, Pris and Batty, which I'm going to say right now, of your replicant deaths, I'll just say artificial people deaths in general, mad props to Daryl Hannah.
Yeah.
Mad props.
Backflip she does, and she like has Deckard in that lock between her legs, which I didn't get how his head turned all the way around and it didn't snap, because it looks like it did, but he turns around with her. But it was awkwardly cut.
It's awkwardly cut, and I think it's just because they were inserting footage maybe from a different cut. But I think she spins around his head, but it looks like she's turning his head.
Yeah.
But more so, mad props to her, the way the hell she sells her death. Because she comes at him and he pulls out the hand cannon, and I literally say hand cannon because we're talking like Indiana Jones, like his gun sounds like a fucking cannon. He pulls it out and shoots her in the gut, like shoots her where it's going to shut her down, and then she she collapses and slides into the wall, and then she twitches violently for an extended amount of time, and I'm like, this is disturbing.
Yeah, and then he had to use the final kill shot to shut her up.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I was like, just put her out of her misery, dude.
Yeah,
Well, because he stares at her for a minute, like, and I'm like, dude, just shoot her. Holy shit.
I don't even know how he handles that gun shooting like with one hand, because that thing's like a mixture between a shotgun and a handgun.
Yeah. And then, we get our final battle with him and Batty on the roof, which one of the questions, by the way, was what was the branded lighted sign behind Roy Batty when he was giving his monologue. That's one of the one of the trivia questions.
TDK.
Yeah, it was TDK. And another one was what song it said when Deckard gets his whatever wine from the one-eyed bartender, what was the song playing in the background? It was a Frank Sinatra song. I forgot which was I forgot what it was actually. I didn't have that down, but yeah, it was a song that was ironic that it went with the kill that he actually eventually does to I think it was Zora.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a really interesting film. It's not actually action packed though. Watching it again, I'm like, there's like 3 action set pieces maybe total. If you think about it, there's initial shot from Leon. That's not really an action piece, but the first time we actually see Deckard like in action is going after Zora after he
halfway through the movie,
and that's halfway through the movie, where they talk about the artificial snake that he. And yeah, as much as it was lower budget, you look at some of the tech being low tech, they make low tech high tech, and this just launched the entire cyberpunk era.
Yeah, it was. He kind of borrowed a note from George Lucas, where it's a used universe. It's a place where this technology has been around for a while, and it's dirty and gritty, and it feels like a place that's real, because not everything is super pristine and clean like most sci-fi is.
Well, yeah, and if you think about when this came out, yeah, it was, this was something that visually you didn't really get for a sci-fi film.
Mm-hmm.
You've got crowded, you had dystopian films, but not quite the way this was portrayed, because for lack of a better term, this is one of the more grounded portrayals, I think, of a dystopian future. You didn't have nuclear, wasteland or anything. You just had huge crowded buildings and marketing and branding everywhere. And
it's kind of like Soylent Green in that way.
Soylent Green, yeah, you're right. It is a bit like Soylent Green, only not as barren as Soylent Green was. But
it always looked like it was designed from Tokyo. Like it looks like a cramped Tokyo where, as you said, there's like constant ads, like people are just bumping each other like end to end because it's so crowded. And just the amount of flashing lights and neon signs, like it looks it's like a torn down Tokyo, but it's LA, where clearly the environment there has completely changed, where it's raining all the time. I used to live in LA. It hardly rains there. And then, of course, in the sequel, it's snowing there. So, whatever they did to the environment, it's fucked, and you even get that, like, in the ending of Blade Runner 2049 when Kay is fighting, oh, damn it, I can't remember, like, the evil replicant and all that, he's like drowning her. There's, like, this whole ocean of just over-flooded water, because I think people let the water levels rise, where he's, killing them. But yeah, it's interesting how it's supposed to be LA, but clearly humanity is abusing the environment so much that they turned LA into this horrible shithole.
Well, it felt more like New York if you look at it.
Yeah, a little bit of New York too. Yeah, absolutely. There's people like I've been in New York, and people like end to end. It'll be like 9:30. I remember I left Broadway. I saw the Phantom of the Opera there, and everyone was just crammed in the middle of Times Square.
Yeah, and then there was just all kinds of. I mean, you didn't see much of the arts in this.
Yeah.
This is the more grimy underbelly of the world you get in this until you get to Tyrell, whose office is gorgeous.
Yeah, he
Like
has a huge building to himself. while
fucking
everyone
Zen
else is
garden.
suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's how you visually show someone who's affluent versus the poor. You show the poor, you show them in something really cramped. You want to show somebody who's more well off. You have a small person in a large room with lots of space. Space equals wealth.
Mhm.
So it's easy.
And I do think this movie also has one of the first zoom and enhances I've ever was introduced to, because Decker takes this picture, this one photo,
Yeah.
and put in this slot like this little scanner on his CRT TV, and he's talking about enhancing grid, and it literally goes around the corner.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is that in the photo? That's not in the photo. Come on. But you know, that sci-fi element of high lo-fi, high technology in this whole thing.
I'm sorry.
And one of the things I was watching it though, I'm like, you know, it ain't that far from throwing it in the same world as Alien.
Yeah, same dirty universe, same kind of feel to it.
You literally could see Tyrell being a corporation that is a rival to the company in Aliens, the YU. I always forget the name of it, but basically Lance Hendrickson's company.
Yeah.
You could see it almost in that same world,
Yeah.
you know, except the earlier part of it. You can see where I'm like, I'm living in a place where Blade Runner world ends up evolving into the world of Alien.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's basically it's a world that people have lived in for a while, and it doesn't look like your typical sci-fi film. You know, it still looks completely unique.
Yeah.
And yeah, LA seems to be a really depressing place to live in the Blade Runner universe, because it's either constantly raining or snowing there, and you like just to get from point A to point B is a huge pain in the ass because it's overpopulated.
Wayland Yutani, that's what it is. But yeah, it's overpopulated with LA, and LA makes sense because if you think about it, as many people learned a lot about LA during the fires, just how many people actually live in that urban area is insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see Wayland Yutani living in the same world. You know, it's like, could you see where the bishops were evolved from replicants?
Yeah.
You know?
And they can take damage too. They can be like cut in half and they're still talking.
Yeah, you know,
Their
like
blood is like white like milk, which is kind of weird.
It was like they took the Nexus. See, this is where my brain was going after I put this in there. I'm like, okay, so you had the Nexus 6 ones, and they were too human, so they actually roll it back to what you get with the Bishop and the synthetics in Alien, where they made them not quite human, just so that they could control them better.
Yeah.
It could work. I think it could work.
Yeah.
But yeah, Blade Runner, you know, I take the sequel almost as its own. When I saw it, I was like, okay, this is cool. But watching the original Blade Runner again, I'm like, this is still its own thing. I did not connect any of it at all to the sequel. And I think,
yeah. I mean,
it's
there was no plan for a sequel, and you could tell. And like the movie like barely resembles the book. Like I know in the book there's like this one sort of like monk character that keeps climbing up a wall and giving people like philosophical answers to things, and it's like on a TV where they watch him, I think. But yeah, this one's like kind of its own thing, and yeah, with the title Blade Runner, is you would think it's action packed, but it's not. It's much more psychological and deep, and then the action comes with a lot of those philosophical questions.
Have you guys heard the theory that the Kurt Russell film Soldier is a sequel to Blade Runner? I haven't seen it.
No,
I've never seen it, so I can't say.
I've heard that it could be a sequel to Blade Runner, and I could see that because Soldier was one of those that surprised me when I watched it. I went into it not knowing it. I'm like, oh, Kurt Russell action film sci-fi, yeah, I'm in. When I went to see it, and I'm like, oh, this is what it's about. And when I heard some people talk about that, I'm like, there's a valid argument for it that it could possibly
it's the same
be
screenwriter. So
Yeah.
that's also possible. Without going into spoilers, because I'm going to probably watch it this week. What are the links? If there's anything doesn't spoil the story too much.
I mean, outside of their involving, a similar storyline of synthetics and that are existing in that universe. It's hard to say without spoiling it too much, but
then never mind. I'll watch it this week, and
I don't want to because it's been a while since I watched it too, so I don't want to mislead you on it either. But I just remember watching it, and I thought it was a lot better than expected. But I could definitely see it fitting into that world for sure. But yeah, Blade Runner, you can watch it and you see why people talk about this film even still today. Here we are, 43 years later or whatnot. It's one of those films that you still have Reddit threads out there, people discussing it, and I know what the director said, and I'm like, well, that you can see hints at it making sense. Like I said, reaction of the captain trying to look at, are you going to go after them, or are you going to, almost have that feeling like, or are you going to side with them or something, and other reactions to him. I'm like, I don't know. I like it leaving it more of an enigma of whether or not he is actually a replicant or something different.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it leaves open interpretation for the audience to actually participate in the film rather than just view the film. And that's what I always like about those ambiguous endings, You it's like you choose the path, you create the story yourself with it. It's like Tom Hanks at the end of Castaway. He looks at both sides of the crossroads. Which one is he going to take? And it's up for us to, provide our own answer to it rather than just having someone tell us what it is.
Yeah, I like the more ambiguity in the ending, especially for the story like this, which has so much other questions around it that you're just like, it fits more than I'm da 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 da, and all of a sudden the ship, and it's not. We don't even get a shot of the ship when he's doing the voiceover. It's literally like a B camera footage of just over smoke, and then all of a sudden the smoke clears and there's trees, but you're not even seeing like the ship in the shot. They literally just like they literally had a guy with a cigar blowing on the side go, okay, stop, all right. You're
kind of making me want to revisit the theatrical one because it's been like at least 20 years since I've seen it. Just maybe for the schlock value at this point.
If I was, and we'll wrap it up here tonight. Unfortunately, one of our crew members, Katie, couldn't make it. We can blame the Cubs game for that.
I remember on my way to Music Box today, I was checking to see if the Cubs were playing at home, and they were. But luckily there were parking spots available in front of the theater, which usually when the Cubs play, there's no parking anywhere. It's just a madhouse.
So our other crew members are with us in spirit, but I think we'll wrap it up here. I think, Joe, your final thought with Blade Runner.
Iconic. I love it brought back memories of me watching this with my dad on Saturday and Sunday afternoons. And I realized I haven't watched it since he passed away. So this was the first time that I watched on my own. And it was a version of it that I'd never seen. So there was a lot of this version that was kind of new to me. But yeah, I mean, that's basically it. It's one of those movies. It's kind of like a warm blanket on an older night. You just kind of throw it on and kind of veg out a little bit. And of course, we never touched on the great speech by Rutger Hauer at the end.
Oh yeah,
he becomes very much a Christ figure in this, which is odd when you have a character that's going around murdering people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because go ahead. Yeah, talk about the monologue a bit at the
but
end.
even that, it just it like we said earlier when we first started talking about it, you go into this movie expecting it to be one thing, and you don't expect it to have all these deep philosophical views in it, and not even the whole monologue, just the last line of it. All those will be lost like tears in the rain. It fucking hits hard still, even 43 years later. It still hits hard.
I think that scene or that monologue is so powerful because it sort of resembles like, well, where am I in this world? And when I die, am I just going to be forgotten like tears and rain? And it's more than just about the robots; it's about us and our existence and our maker. And I think the movie like has withheld the test of time, not just because it was visually spectacular, but because it was a complicated movie that requires the audience to sort of fill in the gaps themselves. And that's the best kind of cinema, the kind that makes you a participant rather than just a viewer. And yeah, it's a movie that's iconic. Vangelis is at it. Yeah, his score is incredible to it. And here comes the record.
I don't have before you were here.
I don't have the record for everything now, but
I mean, the thing is, we're all just a composite of our memories, our dreams, our experiences, and when each of us dies, we're not, our everything that we've lived through isn't replaceable. The stories that we have, we pass them down to people. How many of those get passed down versus their own stories? So over time. And I think that's probably why I went into filmmaking, because I was like, I want to be able to tell stories that'll be around long after I'm gone. It's the notion of leaving something behind, and your unique experiences, your unique experience in life, does go with you when you're gone. There's going to be people who remember, you did this thing with them, you did this other thing with them. But there's all the people that you also came across that are now gone. It really is beautiful to think about. I mean, it's depressing as fuck, but
that's how I like it.
Yeah, ultimately, that's usually the kind of thing that I do like to watch. So
well. And for me, the way this ended, and you guys mentioned the monologue in that, but even with the monologue, the setup, because of the replicants that we have here that were introduced, Roy Batty's the furthest along. He starts showing signs that he is at the end of his 4 years, which is why he has the haste of trying to find a cure for this. At the end, he has our hero dead to rights.
Yeah.
He could kill Decker. Like in his last thing, he could kill Decker, but instead he stops and basically drops this monologue that is really, Rutger Hauer just sells the shit out of this monologue. And then his replicant shuts down.
Yeah.
And you even have Decker going, I'm still alive. He's fully expecting. In other films, they would have it to where, maybe he goes to kill Decker at the very end and then, just dies just as he's got his hand on his throat or whatnot. But here he gets there, but then he stops and he drops this monologue and then he just kind of shuts down. And you're just like,
a lesser movie would have done that.
Right. A lesser movie would have had him try, up until the very last second trying to kill Decker. And here, this film doesn't waste what you've gone through over the last 2 hours by giving you a cliche kind of ending. Well, the theatrical one does, but this ending does, gives you a kind of a, so who's the bigger person, Decker or the Nexus guy who lets him live in the last moments of his runtime, basically?
Yeah. And I always wondered why I'm gonna just call him Rutger Hauer, whatever his name. I always wondered why he saved Deckard in the end,
Right.
Did he feel like a bit of guilt at the last minute for what he was doing? Making sort of like a sport out of killing Deckard, or does he just realize that there's too much blood on his hands in the end?
I think he does it at the end because he wants to show that he's more than just the killing machine. Because that's part of the thing too, is all of them, especially him, he's trying to show that he's more than just the Nexus robot. Yeah, he's psychotic. Yes, he's killing, but there's part of him that wants to show that he's more than that, that he's a better person. And I think, in all honesty, him saving Deckard is his way of showing, hey, I'm a better person than you guy. You've been blowing away my buddies. I could kill you right now, but I'm going to save you, And then, so that sits with Deckard too, that you're just like, he didn't kill me in his last few, minutes of being operational. He saved me.
Yeah.
And again, more questions for the audience to help think about these characters as being more than just your killer robots. So there you have it, folks. Blade Runner. Hope you've enjoyed this discussion. I know we went a little long, but I kind of expected it to. Artificially Yours month. Our first one's in the book. We got 3 more coming. And now, as always, this is where I give my wonderful crew members the license to shill. So please shill away. Mike, you're first.
Sure. Check me out at YPA Reviews. There's written reviews that have like the newest stuff available. And if you go on YouTube or the podcast, I just kind of cover whatever I want to. And it's not usually the latest movies because I feel like my written reviews kind of speak for themselves. So yeah, go to YPA Reviews. You can listen to the podcast. You can watch YouTube material. And the YPA stands for You'll Probably Agree. And you'll get my reactions to some movies I recently saw too. Like I'll probably send my reaction tomorrow for Fight or Flight, that was a fun movie. I liked it a lot. So yeah,
cool.
That's my show.
Awesome. And Joe, what do you got to shill?
Not really much to show. I haven't been here for the last month because I've been just
Professor
working.
Joe.
oh my God, yeah. Well, there's been a lot, but I've just been kind of working for like the last month. Sure. At some point soon, I guess, because I just turned in the last draft of a screenplay that I was hired for, so we'll see what happens with that. I'm still working on stuff for the last drive-in. We're up to right now in talking to Austin Jennings today. We're up to the October episodes right now, and what we're doing. So we are way ahead.
Overachiever, you. So
well, that's them, man. They knock these things out quickly. But yeah, they'll assign me a movie. I'll get to it, and we'll get everything written and ready. So yeah, there's not really much to shill right now.
Sure.
I wish I could have been on more when we were trying to get people to vote for us for the Rondo Awards, but I think this might even be the first time I've been on since the nomination. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, at least we were nominated. I think the voting ended. I didn't see the results.
It ended on the 20th.
Yeah. So I wasn't expecting, but just to be nominated is very cool, and that they even considered us. So we appreciate it, and go check out the Rondo Awards for all the great winners for some wonderful horror content. As far as our content here goes, yes, we're in Artificially Yours month. Next week will be an Over the Hill special where we're looking at 1975 Stepford Wives. And then after that, instead of doing the remake, because the remake, after discussion with one of my crew members, is pretty awful, we're instead going to do a revisit. We've done it before here in the spoiler room. It's been 10 years since Ex Machina came out. It's been 10 years since we talked about Ex Machina. That's how long I've been around here on the YouTubes, folks. Actually, almost 19 years now. But we're going to do a revisit. New crew, new discussion about Ex Machina. And then we're going to end it with talking about the classic Metropolis. So, yes, the silent picture Metropolis. So another one that's gone through many cuts, similar to Blade Runner. So stay tuned for all of that, folks. Like and subscribe on Mike's stuff. Keep an eye out for Joe Randazzo's stuff and his films out online. And if you're bored, specialmarkproductions.com. So thank you very much. And until next time, we'll just say a good night, everyone.